I woke up this morning with a heaviness in my heart. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was the silence of the house or the empty chair across from me at the table. I looked out of the window and saw the sun trying to rise through the clouds. It reminded me that even when life feels dark, light is always trying to break through. Some days I feel small, insignificant, almost invisible. I think about my failures, the things I should have done differently, the words I wish I hadn't said. And yet, I also feel a tiny spark inside me, a voice whispering, "Keep going, you are stronger than you think." I folded my hands and closed my eyes. "Lord," I whispered softly, "give me the courage to face today. Help me rise, even when I feel weak. Give me strength to be patient, to be kind, and to keep my heart open." Sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, "I will try again tomorrow." And this morning I decided I would try. I would open my heart to hope, even if it felt fragile. I want to share with you the journey I've been on. Not the easy moments, but the quiet, painful, real ones. Because I've learned that courage is born not in comfort, but in struggle. And motivation, real motivation, comes from trusting that God is walking with you, even when you cannot see the path clearly. I was born in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone's story. My family, well, we weren't perfect. My father was quiet, reserved, and sometimes hard to understand. My mother had a gentle heart, but she carried worries like heavy stones in her chest. I had 2 siblings, my older brother, always full of energy, and my younger sister, tender and soft-spoken. We grew up in a small house with creaking floors and a garden my mother loved. I remember mornings when the sun would peek through the curtains, and she would make us tea and bread with honey. There was comfort in routine, a sense of safety, but life wasn't always easy. My father lost his job when I was 12, and the weight of worry filled our home. My brother tried to lift the burden with jokes, my sister with quiet companionship, and I retreated inside myself. I learned to watch, to listen, to feel the tension around me without adding to it. As I grew older, I realized that courage isn't always about big acts. Sometimes it's about getting up each day despite fear. It's about holding your head high when you feel like hiding. And that lesson came slowly over time, through small challenges. I married young. My husband was kind, steady, and full of faith. We built our life together carefully, piece by piece. There were moments of laughter, of quiet joy, and sometimes of deep sorrow. Life, I discovered, is never only sunshine or only rain. It is both at once, sometimes even in the same day. We had children, and they became our little lights. I loved them fiercely, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. Each night, I prayed for them quietly, that they would grow strong, that they would feel loved, that they would know courage. Even in the happiest moments, I knew the world could feel heavy. I knew that fear, disappointment, and struggle would come to all of us. But still, I chose hope, and this is what I want to share today. The gentle courage that comes from faith, patience, and love. Life has a way of testing us in small ways first, before the storms come. I remember the first time I felt that quiet fear that grows over months, that settles in your chest. It wasn't dramatic. There was no shouting, no breaking news, just small misunderstandings, tiny disappointments, and moments that piled upon each other. My husband and I began to disagree on small things, the way we raised the children, how we managed money, even how we spent our evenings. Nothing terrible, nothing irreparable. At least, not yet. But tension grows in silence, and silence, I learned, can be louder than words. I remember one evening standing by the window, listening to the rain patter on the roof. My husband said softly, almost without looking at me, "I don't know if we're really understanding each other anymore." I felt a lump rise in my throat. I wanted to cry. I wanted to run. But I stayed. I breathed. I whispered a prayer in my heart. "Lord, help me. Give me patience. Help me speak with love, even when I feel hurt." Days turned into weeks. The small cracks in our relationship became harder to ignore. I noticed how easy it is to take kindness for granted, how fast gratitude can fade when fear enters. I noticed the way our children watched us carefully, learning from every look, every gesture, every sigh. I began writing letters to myself, unsent, full of thoughts I couldn't say aloud, letters filled with hope, with pain, with prayer. Letters that reminded me who I wanted to be, patient, loving, courageous. One evening, my husband and I sat at the table, the room dimly lit. I said softly, "I don't want us to lose each other. I want to try. Together." He nodded. We didn't solve everything that night, but we started to try. And that, I realized, is where courage truly begins. In the willingness to face what is hard, even when the outcome is uncertain. It happened quietly, like most life-changing moments do. Not with a bang, not with a warning. Just a still, heavy realization that nothing could ever be the same again. I remember the morning clearly. The sun was barely awake, spilling faint light across the kitchen floor. I had woken early, as I often do, to pray and gather my thoughts. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of birds outside. I opened the letter on the table. It wasn't addressed to me, not exactly, but I knew it was meant for someone like me. It carried words I didn't want to read, words that whispered betrayal, disappointment and heartbreak. My hands trembled slightly as I held it. I felt a hollow ache in my chest, as if something I had believed in had vanished in an instant. I sat down slowly, breathing deeply, trying to steady my thoughts. "Lord," I whispered, my voice barely audible, "I don't understand. Help me see clearly. Give me the courage to face what must be faced." It wasn't just the letter, it was the culmination of months, years even, of small disappointments that I had ignored, brushed aside, or prayed over in silence. All of it had built up quietly inside me, until the weight of it could no longer be contained. I remember my heart racing, not in panic, but in the heavy sorrow of realization. Sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's the quiet strength it takes to open your eyes, to see truth, to face pain without letting it destroy you. That day, I had to confront my husband. I had to speak words I had feared for so long, words that might change everything between us. I found him sitting in the living room, staring at the floor, a cup of untouched tea in his hands. "I read the letter," I said softly, my voice trembling. "I know what's been happening. I know what you've been hiding." He looked up, and for the first time in months, our eyes met fully, not with anger, not with blame, but with the raw vulnerability of two people standing on the edge of change. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said, voice low, heavy with regret. "I know," I whispered, "but I needed to know. I can't pretend anymore. I can't keep carrying this alone." It was a quiet moment, but in that quiet, the storm of emotions began to settle into clarity. Fear, anger, sadness, and love all intertwined. It was messy, painful, but it was real. And in that realness, I felt the first flicker of courage I had been praying for. For hours we talked, not just about the letter, but about everything that had led us here. The misunderstandings, the silent resentments, the words left unsaid. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope. Hope doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like truth. Sometimes it looks like sitting with pain, holding hands, and deciding to try again. In the days that followed, I spent a lot of time alone, not in loneliness, but in reflection. I walked in the garden, letting the morning sun warm my face. I prayed while watching the wind move through the trees. I thought about forgiveness, not as an abstract idea, but as a quiet daily choice. I wrote letters again, this time to my own heart. Letters filled with clarity, honesty, and hope. "I forgive," I wrote. "I am willing to heal. I will not let this pain define me." I realized something important. Courage is not just about facing others. Courage is also about facing yourself. Facing your fears, your mistakes, your regrets. It's about holding your own heart tenderly, even when it feels broken. And I felt that God was with me in those quiet moments, not as a voice in thunder, not as a dramatic intervention, but as a steady presence, guiding me, holding me, giving me the strength to walk forward. One evening, my husband and I sat together again. This time there were no letters, no secrets, no heavy silences, just two hearts, quietly willing to begin again. "I want to try," he said softly. "I want that too," I whispered, reaching for his hand. It wasn't a sudden miracle, nothing in life ever is, but it was a start. And sometimes, a start is all you need to find the courage to keep going. I spent that night in prayer, thanking God for the gift of clarity, of truth, and of renewed hope. I realized that even in our darkest moments, there is a path forward. If we have faith, if we choose courage, if we allow love to guide us. In that moment, I learned a quiet truth. Real strength is not about perfection. Real strength is about facing pain with grace. Real strength is about standing up, even when the world feels heavy, and saying, "I will keep going."